Welcome back. Here we are again talking about ways to improve our usage of FamilySearch. And today we're going to approach things a little differently. We've been talking about a lot about AI at FamilySearch, and today we're going to talk about using AI at Ancestry to help us grow our FamilySearch tree. And so what's the issue that we're really approaching here? Well, it's that many of us know that FamilySearch has a real problem with searching. They've worked for years to get it right, and it's still hit and miss, and a real challenge for a lot of people to find things searching on FamilySearch. And users at FamilySearch quickly realize that there are so many records and so many places to find information that it can be a little bit daunting. And so we want to see if there's ways to simplify things, make it easier on us, and get the results we need. Sometimes going to another site like Ancestry can result in a search where bringing records up that we know are in FamilySearch, but we can never find them there. And what are we going to do in that situation? So that's a special situation that we'll deal with. Those records that are AWOL at FamilySearch, but we know they should be there. And what can we do in the meantime? And so this presentation is going to help us kind of develop a research pattern that should help us to bring order to this situation. So our plan is to develop a search pattern that will optimize the gathering of information so that we can get as much information as we can as quickly as possible using all the resources at FamilySearch, and in this case, Ancestry. The two sites share a lot of records, but they both have many unique records. So we want to identify which sites have which records so that we can gather these in and attach them to our people. And we need to recognize the strengths and weaknesses of both sites. So we'll start by doing that. We'll analyze both sites and their search systems. So searching with FamilySearch, at the end of 2024, FamilySearch had over 20.5 billion searchable records and images. This is part of the problem. With that massive number of records, it's hard to always find the one you're looking for. These come from basically those 2.4 million rolls of digitized film, of which many of them are not even available for us to see because they have access restrictions, and others are not indexed. And so we're not even talking about the totality of the situation, just the ones that we can actually do searching for, which is the 20.5 billion searchable records. And find these by going to search and then to records. And these are indexed. These are the ones we love because they're indexed. They're easy to find. We can use a person's name and find them. But you're going to find out that this is really a minority portion of the website. The next group down under search are images, and this is a vastly larger collection. These are unindexed records that have been prepared for indexing, which they've now done away with, and are now being read by artificial intelligence so that they can get every name indexed. For now, the ones that haven't been sent out to full text search are still listed under images, and you have to go searching for them by collection and then by page by page until you find what you need. You can't search them by name. And so recently at the beginning of the year, FamilySearch released full text search, which is a wonderful tool where they're taking these images and turning them into basically OCR searchable records that we can search for every word to find what we're looking for. They still don't have a traditional index, but they are findable. You do a search, you get a result. This is a great improvement, and we love it. Okay, where can you search at FamilySearch? This is part of FamilySearch's problem. There are so many places to go. From the Persons page, you can click on FamilySearch in the right-hand column, and that will take you over to the different search groups that you can search, and it will take you over to records, the indexed records. You can do the same exact thing by using the home page at FamilySearch, and the search engine there will also take you to records. And you can just go on the top of any page, click on search, and the first option is records. So you have many different ways to get to the records. The only big difference is when you do it from the Persons page over in this first column where you're doing FamilySearch, it fills in all the boxes with all the information on the person. And to me, that oftentimes is counterproductive because it feeds too much information. Oftentimes it's better to use these other two searches where you start with nothing and you fill in what you really want to search for, and only that, because less is often best. Okay, then the second group down are images, and you can find them by going to images, and it takes you to the page of historical images where you can search there. But again, this is not where you search by name, it's where you search by location and then record set. And that can be a very challenging effort. It's wonderful that they're taking those records and running them through AI and putting them out under the full text search, where they're much more user-friendly in being found. I really love this process over the images process. Okay, limitations. Well, records, when you do it from FamilySearch person page, you're dealing with over 3,400, almost 3,500 collections, which means you're going to get thousands of results. No matter how you try to limit the results to just what you want, you're always going to get a few that seem to match and then a lot that don't even seem to be close. That's just the nature of the beast. That happens at all the big sites. They all turn out that kind of a result. Okay, and like I said, less is best. You often find your best results when you cut things down to the bare minimum to do your searching and try different things a little at a time. And searching just a single collection or a few collections at once usually brings you much better result opportunities. Okay, if you go over to the records screen by clicking on records under the search or going on the home page and doing a search there, you still have some of those same problems because you've got so many collections. But here you're filling in the information. So usually you start with a lot less and you have what seems to be a better opportunity of finding what you want. If I can't find it by using the go to FamilySearch on a person's page, I'll go use this and fill in what I want and often find what I need. Okay, the images, as we've said, they can be challenging, hard to search, and the full text search requires you to learn a little bit about how to do a good search there, but it's great. The collections are what we would call a relatively small number, but growing rapidly and getting more and more all the time. Eventually, it'll probably be a majority of the collections. Okay, search limitations at Ancestry. I won't go into so much detail here. We'll just say it has sheer size. We're looking at 65 billion records that are indexed. And that's why whenever you do a search there, you're going to get thousands and thousands of results. And again, the first page might have good stuff, And beyond that, it's going to be things that are just maybe, but probably not. And even if you ask for limiting the size, you're still going to get a lot of results that aren't even close. You can try limiting the number of databases you search, but that takes more time. You have to figure out what kind of records are actually at Ancestry, but it can be done. But again, that slows you down. They have this AI tool called Suggested Records. And this is the thing we're going to focus on, but we always have to remember that it has its own limitations too. Anything that's AI will always provide you with questionable results that need to be verified. And one of the features about this particular collection called Suggested Records is that Ancestry relies not just on the records that are out there, but then what records were attached to people that appear to be the same as the person you're looking for. And so you may get a lot of records that are really the wrong person, but that's because people have been attaching them to the wrong person. And again, you'll also find they have multiple databases where you'll find up to 5 or 6 different copies of the same marriage record, let's say. And that's because they've come up with so many different genealogical databases around that have the same information. But you need to check it all, because sometimes as they transcribe them, they'll maybe get it right on one of them and wrong on the others. And this is a way to help you eventually ferret out, if it exists, where a record might truly be. Okay, then the question becomes sourcing. Where are we going to source from? What are we going to source? And of course, obviously, if we're working with FamilySearch, the goal is to source everything FamilySearch has. We want to, drain the well, so to speak, by attaching every record as a source to people and tree, so there's no records left. Because if there's like 2 marriage records for the same person, you want to attach both of them to that person, because if you don't, the one that isn't could be used to create a duplicate person, and we don't want that over in tree. Now, when the records are coming through Ancestry only, not found at FamilySearch, and we know that those can't be found at FamilySearch, then we definitely want to source them and put them in at FamilySearch, but we need to create a source. And we'll decide between either doing it by hand or using a program called RecordSeek, which is a great program, and we'll show you how that works in a few minutes. Now, there are records that are found at both. It's really a bigger collection than this Venn diagram indicates. For those records, if you really know they're at both sites, you're going to try to find it at FamilySearch and source it from the FamilySearch version, not the Ancestry version, because again, we want to use up the FamilySearch records. We don't need a duplicate from Ancestry if we've got the same record over at FamilySearch, unless we can't find the record at FamilySearch. Then we would go ahead and source the Ancestry one. Okay, so this is what our little AI research assistant at Ancestry looks like, better known as Suggested Records. Okay, and it's an AI tool because it does the heavy lifting for us. Then all we have to do is choose what's correct there. But our question is, where did these records come from? Where can they be found? Okay, and so this is the person that we looked up, Oscar Emsweiler, and he has 10 of these suggested records. And it's a very typical 10. 6 of the 10 are Ancestry records that are also at FamilySearch. And so for those, we'll go over to FamilySearch and source them. And then there's 4 that appear to be unique to Ancestry. And so for those, we'll use RecordSeek to attach them over at FamilySearch. That's very typical kind of breakdown. But you have to basically look at every record you want to use to determine that. Or some will be easy to figure out, like U.S. censuses and World War I draft cards, things like that we know are at FamilySearch just automatically, so there's not a big deal. Others we have to work a little harder at. Okay, so let's look at an example. I'm on Sophia Dubinsky. I don't know an awful lot about her. All I've got is a year of birth, a year of death, and I don't have any places. I don't have any sources. I've got a problem. And when I look at research help, I don't get any help. There's nothing there. Okay, this is her family grouping. It shows her with her husband and a child, Samuel. It turns out that Louis and Sophia's records are there because they're over in Find a Grave, and those dates came off of their Find a Grave memorials. And I know that because the person I was really working on was their son, Samuel. And when I went to him, he was sourced with Find a Grave. And when I went to look at the record, it then led me to the memorials for his parents, which showed just the years. So anyway, I knew this is where it was coming from. But Sophia doesn't have any record attached to her at all. So we need to do something. So we'll go to FamilySearch. We know we're looking for Find a Grave, so let's see if we can get Find a Grave to come up for her. So we click on it, and there's 4,200 results. Well, that's how many results there are. Really, looking over the results, the ones I looked at, there was only one that appeared to be her, and that was, of course, Find a Grave. So we went ahead and we sourced Find a Grave to her, which was good, and then said, okay, what else can we do? There's still nothing at FamilySearch. So let's try going to Ancestry. We know one record she's on, Find a Grave. So let's see if we can Find a Grave at Ancestry, and then we'll look at the suggested records. So here's Ancestry's version of Find a Grave, and with it are the suggested records. We've got to be careful. There's no guarantee they're correct. Some of these are placed here because people have attached them to trees, and others will be okay, but some may not be. But we have some records to choose from, which is better than FamilySearch provided. So this is where we find our AI, Ancestry AI assistant again, just to point it out, make sure you understand what we're doing. So looking at these, the very first one appears to be an obituary. The trouble at Ancestry, it says there's a Sophia Yaffe in there. Is it her obituary or is she named in it? Well, here's the obituary itself, and it turns out to be her obituary in 1942. It gives her death date. It gives her name, and her Russian name was Zalata, not Sophie. And the way it's written makes it look kind of like it might be her last name, but in fact, it's really her given name, her original given name. Her death date shows there, doesn't say where. Everything points to St. Louis, so it was probably in the St. Louis area. And she's the widow of Lewis, which we knew. And her children were Mrs. Betty Goldstein, Leo Laffey, and the late Sam Yaffe. And it says that she had a sister, and that means she has siblings. She had grandchildren, but again, they weren't named. And there was even a living grandmother. Unfortunately, the names weren't provided. Space was valuable, apparently. And it should be noted that Betty wasn't listed in the family, so later on we'll do some looking for Betty and see what we can come up with. But right now we're working on Sophie. Okay, another record for her had her down as Zalata Laffey, and that's another newspaper article. Now, I will tell you one thing. I went back to FamilySearch and tried searching for her under Sophie Laffey and Zalata Laffey, and I couldn't find a single record. And here I am sitting here at Ancestry with several. It's amazing. So this other newspaper article happens to also be an obituary, not hers though. This time it's a 1936 obituary for her brother Isaac. And it gives his death date, his wife, father of, and then names his children, and then names his brothers and sisters, which included Zalata. So we have some nice information here. Has 8 children, 1 deceased, 4 siblings, a wife. We have all these people we can add into FamilySearch now and start working on. And so this is a nice obituary, very helpful. I know there's still more to go. And one of them was a death certificate. Now I know I can go to online to Missouri Vital Records and look at their death certificates. Now, I didn't know they were found at any of the genealogy sites until this came up. And Ancestry happens to have the death certificate. FamilySearch doesn't. Well, this particular death certificate named Sophie, but it's actually Leo's death certificate. But that gave me the idea, if she died before 1972, hopefully I can get her death certificate. And sure enough, she was dead in 1942, and so I was able to come up with it. And the information is all thanks to Leo, whose death certificate gave me the idea to go look at this in the first place. The problem with good old Leo, her son, is he obviously didn't pay attention when they talked about the old family, because his father was dead, so he was the one left to give the information. He didn't know when his mother was born. He didn't know anything about where she was born other than Russia. And he didn't know who her parents were. And so he was a lot of no help. Thank you, Leo. Would have been nice if you'd paid attention when your parents talked about their early days. Okay, so now how are we going to get things like these newspaper articles over into FamilySearch? We have 2 options. We either create the record by hand or we use this program called RecordSeek. I strongly recommend the use of RecordSeek. And so to use it, you just go to recordseek.com and the page will look like this. And all you have to do is take that little green box that's down at the bottom that says RecordSeek and drag it to your browser's bookmark bar or favorites bar, whatever it's called. And when you do that, it will install RecordSeek as an extension for that browser. In other words, it'll become a part of the browser and you can use it. And you can, what I do is I open it up once on my browser and then I save that link to my bookmarks, so it's easy to find. If not, I can always go to extensions, find the little icon for extensions, and go down the list and find RecordSeek on it, and just click on it when I'm ready to use it. And the little icon for Chrome is that little kind of like a jigsaw puzzle piece. And then there's RecordSeek. Okay, and then once you click on it, this is what'll happen. It'll open up like this, and it's going to give you the option to either create a record at one of 2 places, either FamilySearch or Ancestry. You want to be on a different website. You're not doing this to attach an Ancestry record to Ancestry. But if you have something at Ancestry or Find My Past or on some web page out there that needs to be sourced at FamilySearch, you click on FamilySearch. If you want to put it on Ancestry on the tree you have there, click on Ancestry.com, and it will walk you through the creation of the source. And what you'll do if you click on FamilySearch, it's going to have you sign in to FamilySearch, and then you're ready to create the source. Now, as you get ready to create the source, and let's say we're doing this at FamilySearch, there's a couple of things you're going to want to do. The first thing you're going to want to do is copy to your browser the ID number for the person that you're going to put the source on. So in this case, it's Sophia. So we're going to just click on her ID so that it copies it. I'm not going to paste it anywhere yet. We're going to have it copied though, so we don't have to go looking for it later. Then the second thing is we're going to open up the source we want to actually attach, and we're going to highlight. We're not going to do copy and paste. We're just going to highlight, in this case, the information in the transcription. I'm not going to do this to the actual image. We're going to do it to the transcription page that links to the image. So just highlight that, and you'll see why in a second. Then at that point, you would open up RecordSeek, and you would have this screen come up after you sign in because it knows you're creating a record for this particular source, and you'll start sourcing it. And what you're going to want to do probably is add the person's name here, because it usually doesn't include the person's name in the title, and I like that. I'm going to want to go over here where the tags are found so that I can tag the events, life events that are in this record that pertain to Sophie. In this case, her name, her birth wasn't given, so I can't click that. Her death and her gender. Those are the things that I know from the obituary. And then I'll close it. It'll fill in the URL. It should fill in the record citation. If it doesn't, I can always go to that page in Ancestry and copy it in if I need to. And it will have taken what I highlighted in the transcription and filled in, described the record with that information so that it's all there for me. That's why I love this, because it creates it for me. Then I click Next. At this point, I want to paste the URL for Sophie in this great big box where you put the ID for the person. I don't want to do a search for, because A, it takes time. I could end up finding a duplicate record that I don't want to stick it on, or somebody else that isn't really her. So that's why we copied her ID, to make sure we get to the right place. Then I'll click Next. Then this little box comes up and I give a reason for this. This obituary establishes her death date and the names of her husband and her 3 children. And then I'm going to click Create and Attach. And I've done my source. At this point, I can either go back and now look at her record on FamilySearch with the source, or I can attach the same source to somebody else. I could go through all the family members and attach it to each of them. At this point, all I'd need to supply are their IDs. So this is a slick little program. Okay, this is what the final source looks like when it's opened. It's going to have the URL link. And of course, now you realize this is an Ancestry page. It's actually newspapers.com. The person doesn't have the subscription to that site. They aren't going to be able to see the original record. That's why we did the copy and paste of the transcription. So at least the transcription is available. until they can get to a center or a library that has Ancestry in it so that they can see the original record. It also has the citation. It tells who did this and why. That's an excellent way to make sources. Okay, so let's try it again. Still working in this family, and we're back to Betty now. Initially, all I knew was Betty's name with her last name of Goldstein. And so I've done a little bit of work. I've gotten her husband's full name is Louis Goldstein. And I couldn't find anything at FamilySearch, but Ancestry has those nice Missouri death certificates. And again, it comes through for us. And here is Betty's death certificate. And that led me over to find a grave, because that was on the suggested records that was found with the Missouri death certificate. And sure enough, there's a find a grave record. Okay, so I said, fine, let's attach this, go over to FamilySearch and we'll attach it to her, because I know exactly what's on this memorial. I should have no trouble putting it in at FamilySearch. I could not find it at FamilySearch. I used the dates and the dates and the name, even the cemetery place, and nothing would ever come up. So this is one of those cases where good old RecordSeek saves the day. And even though it should be at FamilySearch, I used RecordSeek to attach this to Betty so that she had Find a Grave as one of her sources. And you just throw your hands up in the air and say, I don't know why, but that's what we got to do. Okay, one more. Here's Walter St. Ledger, another guy we don't know a lot about. Born in 1836 in Ireland. No idea when he died. So let's see what we can do. He has no hints. So I went to the AI research assistant at FamilySearch. It gave me several suggested things, but nothing really provided me with a death. Over here, this first one says something about Walter St. Ledger, 1834 to 1918 at Ancestry. Well, that's the only kind of hint I had to go on. And so I'm really up a creek. I looked at his sources, and one that I had was the US 1910 census. So here's my goal. I'm going to go to Ancestry, and I'm going to look for him on the 1910 census. And when I find it, I will then look at the suggested records. So here's his suggested record, or here's the search for him at Ancestry. The first option was the 1910 federal census. Perfect. So I clicked on that, and there's the transcription, beginning of the transcription, and here's suggested records, and there's all the suggested records for him. Quite a few. And when I looked at them, it appeared that there was an obituary for him. So I said, okay, let's look at that. And sure enough, it's actually him. And it was in the Thursday, January 13th, 1916 newspaper, Newark, New Jersey. And 1916 was that year that that other hint said he should have died. And so it doesn't give us the exact date. It just said that he died at his home, and the funeral was held today, which would be the 13th of January. So sometime just prior to it. Well, actually, it said he died on Monday. I'll take that back. Back here, it said he died last Monday. And so if you backdate it, that brings it to January 9th. And so we actually have a death date. Don't get a birth date, but we get some interesting information about some of his family members here. And that he was born in Galloway, Ireland, 68 years ago, and gives us some good information. Okay, so you can see how this program, the system, works real well. In the end, our goal is still to try to milk FamilySearch for all of its records and attach as many as we can to the people that we're working with. But when they don't give us what we need, we have to go to Plan B. And Plan B is, in this case, for the ones we were showing you today, found at Ancestry, especially with their suggested records. And we'll use those like our own personal research assistant over there at Ancestry to help us augment what we need to fill out our people at FamilySearch. And it really is a good program. It works well. I've used it a lot, find it to be very successful. Just have to be careful and not believe every one of those suggestions is for real. Okay, if you liked what you saw today, please click like for us so that we can get more people to see these videos. You can also click subscribe if you go over to our YouTube channel, which you can find easily just by typing in Fresno North Steak, and it'll come up. You'll see one of our videos, and you can get to the channel that way and then subscribe. And then you'll be able to receive notices whenever we release a new video, which is about every other week or so. We also have on that page, the home page for the channel, a little link there in blue to our blog. The only thing that the blog that's helpful, that's beyond what you find on the web page, is the fact that for every one of our videos, we've taken the PowerPoint and turned it into a PDF document of slides and made those available to you that you can use to review the lessons, or as far as I'm concerned, you can take the slides and use them as you wish. Just try to give us some credit for making the originals. So, hope you enjoyed this today, and we'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks. You have a good evening or morning or whatever it might be.